Dan, welcome back for another episode of the Hounds podcast.
Yes, indeed. Here we are. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I've made a few mistakes, but I'm still here.
Well, that's good. That's good to know. Ready for another exciting episode right here on the Hounds podcast. I'm Dan from Back 40 Firewood, and across from me in Woodhound Studio is Joe from Ohio Woodburner. We have YouTube channels, if you don't know. I'm sure everybody knows. We started this podcast not knowing really what we were doing, and here we are still not really knowing what we're doing.
Yeah, we're putting people to sleep for 3 years in a row now, right?
We do what we can, and
Yeah.
Dan
and I are a little punchy. We had a very fun discussion before we hit the record button because we were going to talk about some serious issues involving the firewood industry about if you should stack firewood bark up or bark down. But we got you're supposed to laugh when I say that, Dan.
Well, we never really came to a conclusion, so I don't know.
Yeah, so we got sidetracked and we thought we're just going to hit record and go with this because it was kind of fun. So Dan and I, we're both YouTube channels, and I have said in the past that I really don't watch that much firewood content on YouTube. I watch other stuff. And there was this one video I had stumbled upon, and it's not a firewood channel, but this guy, where does he live, Dan? It's like Alaska or Canada or
somewhere kind of, I don't know if he's off grid or what, but out in the wilderness.
Yeah, he lives in the rugged parts of the world. And so he went driving up this logging road, up this mountain one day with his buddy, and his buddy was the cameraman. And they're driving up this mountain road, and as they get higher and higher into the elevations, it goes from no snow to some snow. And then the snow starts getting a little deeper, and they notice that there is a lone set of tire tracks in the snow that they're following. And they conclude it was a smaller car because it was a small, footprint, I guess. So they, as they get on up the mountain, they were suspecting that someone was driving up there that probably was in a vehicle that was inappropriate for the terrain. And as they went around this corner, sure enough, there was what was it, Dan? Like a Honda Accord or like a Toyota.
Mid-size or smaller sedan. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a four-door sedan, a front-wheel drive car, and it was broadside in the middle of the road. And it was a younger college-age couple, and they were driving up the mountain and realized they were getting in over their head. They tried to turn around when the snow was getting deep to drive back down the mountain, and they got stuck. So this guy gets out of his truck, and he says, are you stuck? And they were like, yeah, can you help us out? So they got out their shovels, they got out a chain, and it was kind of narrow. He didn't want to drive off the side of the cliff, kind of a thing. And while all this was going on, it was the woman who was driving, and the young man was in the passenger seat, and he didn't get out of the car. He stayed in there. So this guy is hitching up the car. He's pulling it around. They got him pointed down the mountain, and the woman is outside and just thanking him profusely, for saving him, because they're going to wind up spending the night on that mountain probably. So they head on down the mountain. Okay. So now the guy is there with his buddy and the camera all by himself. And then this guy starts going off on the couple that he just saved. And what was he upset about, Dan?
I believe it was that the man remained in the car and did not even get out to lend a hand.
Yes. He was very upset about that. So this guy here, he's kind of one of these self-sufficient kind of people. He thinks that we should all still be butchering our own cows and, keeping our heads of cabbage in the basement, that kind of a guy.
Yes.
So he was he wasn't just ticked off, he was furious. And he was calling this kid. I mean, he just made every conclusion about this kid. I'm calling him a kid. He was probably like in his mid 20s or something. And okay, so he didn't get out of the car to help. And then this guy concludes it's because he's soft, right? He's less than he flunked the masculinity test. His wife or
Yep.
whoever it is out doing all this stuff instead of him. Well, the the inspiring thing about all this though was in the comments, because the people in the comments let him have it, because they were saying, you don't know who this guy is. He could have just donated a kidney, or he may not even had legs for all he knew, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. He had no idea the situation,
Oh,
the circumstances, what was really going on. I
yeah.
mean, there might have
He
been a
made it.
reason, there may not have been. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah, it could have been. He could have been lazy, but he could have been, he could have been at risk or sick or whatever. And and we were talking about what it is about people that help, that give. And that in this case, like my mom, she said there's two types of people in the world. There's givers and there's takers. And
Yes.
and givers give. When you give unconditionally, without expectation of repayment. That is how you do it. And this guy, though, kind of, you got the impression he wasn't helping. He was probably helping just to get that car out of the way so he could go around them. But it was not an act of giving. It was an act of standing in judgment of others, because he was talking about, whoever was driving this car up this mountainside was dumb to begin with. And, he just had all of these conclusions. And then the kid that didn't get out to help just sent him off.
Yeah. They had no business being there. And then when they were there and they realized they were in trouble, the guy just sat there and did nothing. And that
Yeah.
that was a no-no. For
Yeah.
number
Well,
one, he was letting the woman drive. I mean, obviously, there
yeah,
you're
that
in
was
trouble.
another, that
Yeah,
was
yeah,
another issue.
yeah, that was another problem he
He
saw.
had a problem with
Just
that.
everything.
I mean, the kid could have been blind, you don't know. The kid could have, whatever. Okay. So we're laughing about this whole thing. And then it just so happens I watched this other YouTube channel, and this guy, he is also out west. I think he might be in Arizona, because he's in like desert and in mountainous kind of locations. And he owns a wrecker company, like your traditional tow truck. Your car breaks down at Walmart and he'll tow it to the Ford
Repair. Yep.
garage.
Yep.
Yeah, but he's made an off-road recovery element to his business. And he bought like a junkyard Jeep Cherokee, and he made his own suspension. It sits high up off the ground. He's got these gigantic tires on him, and he uses these big bungee cords. They're called Yankums, and it's like a cable, but it's a bungee cord, and he'll hitch it up, and he'll just drive off as fast as he can, and that cord stretches like a rubber band, and then it'll then it pulls the car out. And these people, he goes up way up into the mountains. He'll go way out into the desert. Like there's a guy who was pulling a fifth wheel trailer out on just some washed out road somewhere and got stuck out in the middle of nowhere. And he would drive out and pull this guy out. And this is the exact opposite of the first guy. He is just a very nice person. And when he films himself driving out to it and talking about, the challenge that this pool is going to be, and you never hear him do what, Dan?
Blame the customer.
Yeah.
He never brings up, he doesn't, I guess, like you said, hold the person in judgment about how they got there, why they got there, what are they doing there. They have no business. He
Yeah.
just sees the opportunity to, help the people out and
Yes.
make a
For a
business
fee.
out of it.
Yeah.
A business model.
Uh-huh. Now, but that is also the opposite, though, of his comment section, because what do you read in his comments?
how the people should not be there and they should
Yeah.
not be driving in those conditions. And why would you ever try to drive your vehicle in that
Yeah.
spot? Yeah.
Yeah, they are clearly dumb and they don't even deserve to have a driver's license if they're going to think that they can take their car out that road and get
What
stuck,
is wrong with them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. Now, we're a firewood podcast. And this is where we found this a very interesting discussion because there is a element of the firewood industry within all of this. So when you think about the guy with the wrecker service, he could have been one of these guys that stand back and judges, that mocks someone who's in a vulnerable position. That's just quick to call them dumb and they've deserving everything that they get. But he didn't. He sees an opportunity. He sees a business model. He sees a demand. And it just then, Dan and I were thinking, do you know what? In a service industry, and it doesn't matter what the service is, like what are they? We were talking, Dan, bakery, auto mechanics, um,
Um,
swimming pool installation.
yeah. Shuttle,
er-
airport shuttle,
yeah,
all these, everything, every
everything,
service.
every service, a restaurant, a bakery. Did I already say a bakery? I must
Yes.
be
You must be hungry.
craving craving these these brownies over here. Gee whiz. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So every industry that's out there was someone who could have gone one of two ways here. They could have seen, okay, well, here's a person that needs their oil changed. And they could say, well, if you're not smart enough to change your own oil, you have no business driving a vehicle.
Right.
Versus, you know what? There's a demand here. There's a lot of people that don't know how to change their own oil, or there's a lot of people that can't, or there's a lot of people that
Or
don't want to.
or don't want to, yes. Or simply
Yeah.
just don't want to change their
Yeah.
oil.
It's kind of like me. I, Dan, don't want to slaughter a cow. Okay. It's not high on my list of things to do, but I want to eat them. Okay. I
Yep.
admit I am complicit in this, but I would prefer not to kill a cow. Yeah, I wouldn't even want to butcher it up either. I want to pay a butcher, okay? And then sometimes I don't even want to cook it. I will pay a restaurant. So this is a service. And these people, instead of mocking me because I am too whatever about, killing a cow, too squeamish, too lazy, too soft, too whatever, I don't want to kill a cow. I want to pay someone else to do it for me. So the service industry has that entire element to it. There are people that will stand there and mock a customer because they have no business eating, I guess, because they don't want to kill their own cow, versus a service that says, you know what? There's a need here because there's a lot of people that need a good steak and some ground beef. And I'm willing to do it for them.
And then the next level, like you mentioned, and then there's also people who don't want to cook that steak or make that, make the burger. There's people that just want to go out and have it made for them. So there's
Yeah.
all those levels of service provided.
Yeah. And I have a background in auto parts. I've been a motorhead my whole life, but I used to work for a national auto parts company. And one of the fastest ways to lose your job there was to talk bad about the customer. And we did. We had this new hire, very knowledgeable about cars. But like a customer comes in, it's a DIY store, you were empowering people to have the confidence to change their own brakes, to change the drain and fill their own coolant, whatever. This customer was asking some very elementary questions about auto mechanics, do his own brake job. And the parts guy tells him, maybe you shouldn't be the one doing this. And they cut him loose, even if the guy was right. This is not our business, is to empower the DIY, not to pass judgment on them, you know.
I had the same thing happen to me with the roll pin in my loader bucket on the tractor. I did not know what that part was, and boy, did I hear how I have no business driving or owning a tractor because I did not know what that part was.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah, and one doesn't follow the other. It's just there's this attitude about people where it's like getting back to our first guy that pulled the couple out of out of the middle of the mountain road. They see this as an opportunity to let the world know who they are instead of being the humble servant.
Yeah.
And that's where we started saying, well, you know what, Dan, I see some of this in the firewood industry too. Don't you?
Oh, yes. If you go on to some of the forums and the groups on social media, this is a very common theme about the customers who wait till the last minute to get their firewood or aren't prepared, and who should be buying firewood in December. If you're trying to buy firewood in December, good luck. It's your fault that you didn't buy it earlier. There's all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's just always this sentiment of the customer is the one who's making the mistake or is wrong or is an idiot.
Yeah. And these guys are a firewood service. They're a producer or a delivery service, and they are standing in judgment of a person, you know,
Yep.
instead of serving them. Now, it may not be your industry, I mean, if you want to be a butcher or if you want to be a restaurant, you don't want to be both. Choose one. But it's a service that you're providing. And if you sell green, you don't sell seasoned firewood, why can't that just be good enough? But then you hear people that just, I don't know. I mean, they speak so disrespectful of a person, and all they want to do is give you their money.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the kicker. Here's the people that want to give you money, but yet you're finding things wrong with
Yeah.
the potential transaction. And then
Yeah.
it's I mean, and people will post like the threads of like a conversation through chat or through text messages, and point out where this person was wrong. And I understand that sometimes when you're in a position of, if you're always doing firewood, it's easy to overlook the fact that somebody might not know something about firewood. But that's where I think some of these guys online need to like just
Yeah.
step back and evaluate and say, oh, maybe this customer is a first time buyer. Maybe they don't know how much firewood is in a cord. Maybe they don't
Yeah.
know the best time to buy fire. All of these things.
Do you think it is okay for a customer to not know what seasoned firewood is?
Yes. In fact, I don't think many do. I think not a lot of customers think of firewood as wood that you burn when you get it.
Yeah, I agree. I would probably bet 90% of my customers could accurately tell you what a cord is, or a fraction of a cord is, or what seasoned firewood is. I guarantee you could take probably 90% of your customers a load of firewood that is a quarter of a cord from a tree that was alive yesterday, and you could sell it to that customer as a seasoned cord, and they would not have any indication that it was anything different.
Yeah, they would be asking, did you use pepper or papaya? What kind of spices did you use to season this?
Yeah. Well, I hear that too with like wet. Is this wood wet? And do you mean like, did it just get rained on because
Yeah.
we've been having a monsoon outside, or because this tree was alive yesterday and the insides of it are filled up with water? You know, yeah, you hear it all the time, and it is just an opportunity. It's just like the butcher. It's just like the auto mechanic. It's just like the bookstore. It is a service that, and in this economy, it's where you can identify an opportunity, you can identify a market, and you can serve that market and get paid to do it and make a living out of it. And I think if you look at any service that's out there, just drive down the road, where all of these stores that are out there, they're all providing a service that we can't do for ourselves or don't want to do for ourselves, but we're willing to pay someone to do it for us. And it just, I don't know. That's when we were talking about that guy who was just a jerk, uh, pulling that couple out of the road, versus the other, the guy with the wrecker service where he doesn't go down that road. He, just respects people for who they are. They got their car stuck, big deal, and we'll just pull them out, and I get paid to do it.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty crazy that you have to. The other thing is, a lot of times I think there's a large portion of the customers out there for firewood that are like just getting into firewood. Maybe they saw one of these fire pits that one of their friends had in the backyard, and just to assume that everyone is knowledgeable on firewood as far as season, dry, ready to burn, even species. I think
Yeah,
that's a mistake a lot of people make. And again, it's just because we're around it every single day. Like for us, it's second nature. We know all that stuff. But
yeah,
I have had a lot of people that once I explained it to them, like I have people ask me the weight of my mini firewood boxes. And once I explained to them that weight is kind of not a very good thing to judge on, because the heavier the wood is, the less likely it's going to burn because it's full
yeah,
of water.
yeah,
Once they realize that, they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Dry wood is lighter. Okay. I don't care that this box weighs 14 pounds instead of 20.
yeah. Why is it too in firewood that why don't we just mock the customer because they needed firewood at all? you know, that they just should just go source it themselves and make it themselves. Why
Yeah.
is it that, we don't mock the customer when they want to buy it green, but if they want to buy it seasoned, then they're dumb and they have no business even burning wood if they don't understand,
Yeah.
that you just can't invent dry firewood. It's got
Don't
to
these
sit.
people have trees in their backyard? I mean, what the heck?
Yeah.
Everyone should be able to see a tree somewhere. Can't they get their
Yeah.
own wood?
Yeah. I'm glad that we're all different. I wouldn't want everyone to be like me.
I don't think we would either.
Yep, there would be a national gummy bear shortage, and
Oh
all of the
my.
Dr. Pepper would be sold out too. Yeah. All right, so that was, Dan and I guess we're going to have to table our discussion about stacking wood, bark up, bark down, because we just got off on this tangent. We thought, let's just hit record.
We should have
Yeah.
hit record earlier. One of these days, we're just going to hit record before we, right when we start. And then, boy, that'll be an episode. Holy moly's.
Uh huh. Oh, we did leave something out though, Dan.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Well, this is okay. It's just the way the world is these days. I kind of go back in the day of like Little House on the Prairie with Pa Ingalls and Ma Ingalls and Half Pint and Mary. Pa Ingalls, he did everything. He would kill the cow and butcher it up. Then Ma Ingalls would cook it. Yeah, that's just the way people used to live. Well, what the heck? We've evolved here as a country, as a planet, and people have gotten very specialized at what they do, and we've moved a lot of our task indoors, and a lot of people just don't have skills that they used to have because you had to have them, but now
Right.
you don't. And we have a service economy that's set up to pay for it. And I mean, the bottom line, everyone always wants to go back to the good old days, but I mean, 100 years ago, the average lifespan was like 36 years old versus whatever it is today. I mean, we're making some progress here, not all as bad, but people have more time on their hands for leisure and to have a hobby. And so if you look at a person that started a hobby, it's something that they do that's important to themselves, but then they realize that there's other people out there that could benefit from that. So, then a person like a simple hobbyist can turn what they do into a service,
Right. They can provide something for someone.
just like firewood.
Yeah.
A lot of firewood starts off as a hobby.
Yes, indeed. From
Yeah.
from one of the main hobbyists right here. I can tell you that is definitely the case. starts out
Yeah.
as something, and then all of a sudden you start doing more and more and more, and watch out.
hmm Dan, there is one thing I will commit to you right now. If I ever come upon you and you're stuck in the snow, I will graciously pull your Prius out of the snowbank.
Well, if I ever come across your Cybertruck alongside the road without a charge, I will gladly tow you to an outlet.
Yeah. But just don't, if you do it, just do it graciously and don't mock me. Okay.
Right.
Until you walk a mile in my shoes. And then you'll be a mile away from me and you'll have my shoes. So who's got the final laugh there?
Yeah, I was just going to say, and boy, what a position I would be in then.
Well, for sure you would have some big shoes to fill.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
indeed. All right.
Okay.
Anything
Dan,
else
we've
we forgot?
accomplished nothing today. But I just thought this was a fun fun discussion. I'm serious. I was so excited to see the comments because I was agitated watching this. You know, the guy pulling this couple out. I was like, what
Yeah.
the gosh? Why can't you just be nice? I
Well,
guess he was. He pulled him out of the snow, but come on.
yeah, and I mean, and that's the one thing. If you start paying attention to things out there, that's kind of like there's always those people that are just they wanna dig on someone and rip on someone. I mean, it's everything. It's like if you're cutting wood and you use a measuring device, you should be able to eyeball it. What's your problem?
Oh God.
If you're doing this, you should be doing that. If you're using the splitter, you should be using an axe. So it's just interesting. And maybe now, after people listen to this, they'll start seeing that, that theme in comments because it's always there. And if you're like a member of these firewood seller groups, just start watching for that stuff because it's pretty interesting to see.
Well, there is, I mean, if you want to hear this, there is a psychology involved in that. So there is this concept known as defining self through other. So it's not to where you can't just say, I cut and sell firewood or I'm a good person. You have to identify people who are different from you. So, there's like this sociology about crime and like Emil Durkheim. I'm throwing out some names here for you, but like crime is like a sign of a healthy society because it means you have provided clearly identifiable standards of behavior. So we identify the criminals because we are not like them. That's how you define yourself. So I think that's what you see a lot of people where just doing good and just doing whatever they want to do isn't good enough, but they must seek out and identify those who are opposite of them. Defining self through other.
Whew. It's getting deep now. We're definitely
pretty deep stuff.
We better strike up this band before we get on another level.
Well, it's true. Just Google it. You can probably find someone to describe it better than me.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Now we've really gone too far. Strike
Yes.
up that band and let's go.
Sounds good. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to the Wood Hounds, the #1 firewood podcast in the world.
Yeah, we are. And maybe not after this episode, but we are. Yeah. So we want to thank everyone. And please, if you, regardless of your streaming service, if you would consider giving us a review, that really does help us out. So Dan, how about let's tell everyone that when they are driving up a mountain in a Honda Accord to don't
get stuck.
Yeah. And get out of your car if
someone's trying to help you.
Oh boy. And then tell them to have
a great day.